Great, let's go. Good evening, welcome to the Chaska City Council meeting for Monday, April Fool's Day, 2018. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Will you please stand and join me in Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Here, I'll make a prediction. Maybe this is April Fool's. We're going to have a short meeting tonight. One agenda item, and we'll somehow manage the last 3 hours on it. So, but there's my April Fool's joke.
You know, every time we see a cable person walking in here, that they're coming from the Carver.
I know.
And it's usually 7:30.
And we're still just getting into the visitor presentation.
I think we're like the Bronco Nagurski of city councils.
Yeah. All right, let's, Nate, how about if you call roll, please?
Yes, Councilmember Hatfield.
Here.
Councilmember Bostrom.
Here.
Councilmember Wong.
Here.
Councilmember Groff.
Here.
And Mayor Winchell.
Here. Let's go to item 4, adopting the agenda. Corrections or additions to the agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Wang.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Bostrom to adopt the agenda. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Pose same sign. Motion carries. Moves us into visitor presentation. I have 2 items on here. The first one I have is the Carver County Library report with Heidi Hoks and Janet. Is it Kraus? Karius. Good evening.
Thank you so much for having us here tonight.
Absolutely.
Let's see.
We haven't talked about library in a long time.
Okay. We're thrilled to be here tonight. And I gave you several pieces of paper. I'm going to be referring to them later on in the presentation. But I want to start with a story. Many years ago, a little girl from the Bronx lived with her mother. Her father had died several years before, and her mother had 2 jobs that she kept all year long, and during the holidays she would work a 3rd job just to put food on the table, just to pay the rent. The little girl after school would always walk over to the library because even though they were only 1 subway stop away from the library, they didn't have the money for her to take the subway. So she would walk to the library and she would read, and she would just enjoy being amongst all the books and really feeling that because of the knowledge she had in the library, she could do anything when she grew up. She could be anyone. She could attain one of the highest positions ever in the country. And today, when Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor goes to the library, she reads to young children, and she tells them that they can be anything they want to be as long as they have a library, because that is the most valuable commodity they have, their library. And in our case, it's our library. And this library, of course, the Chaska Library. And I'm going to let you move that ahead, Janet, since I'm not quite getting that. The Chaska Library provides so many services. I just want to tell you a couple things that have really stood out for us this year. We get lots of comments from people. We had a University of Minnesota professor who had chosen to move here to an assisted living facility. She had no relatives around, but she had access to the library through the homebound visits. And she loves the library, loves having that service come to her and feeling that she is empowered. Also empowered were the caregivers of a gentleman with traumatic brain injury who come to the adult story times And the gentleman just gets excited, and he sings during the songs, and he claps during the songs, and he listens intently to the stories. And what the caregiver told us is that basically all the rest of the time when he's at home, he's catatonic, but not at the library. It's his special time to come alive. Not only do we have the Chaska Library, but we also have 6 full-service libraries and 4 express libraries within our Carver County system. Because we are having so many multiple libraries, we are able to drive prices down on items that we purchase. For example, when we purchase our software, our subscriptions, our books, we can drive the price down so we can get more buying power for our money. And that helps all of us with that. But besides having the 6 libraries together, we have a regional library system to which we belong, the MELSA system, the Metropolitan Library Services Agency. And because of the Metropolitan Services Agency, we have access to so many more things. We have a base from them of ebook subscriptions. We have a number of services. You'll see in your handouts the Homework Rescue Service, which is a database that helps students with live tutors, helps them with connections to tests that they can take that are sample tests. We also have Job Now, which has coaches online. So as you're going to the database, you have coaches online to help you with your resume and trying to learn how you might interview better. And you'll notice too, you have a ticket. When you go to the theater, when you go to a music event, you always have a ticket, right? Well, this is a ticket that shows you how to go online and get free tickets to various musical events, to various theater events, to various museums in the area. We've had people that have come to us that have been so excited to do this, especially one young couple who had told one of our staffers they had moved out to Carver County and were excited for their new jobs, and then they both lost those jobs. And they no longer could drive in with their kids to see some of these great things, go to children's theater and so on, until they found out about this special ticket and could go on the database to get things free. So their kids still got those exciting adventures through the library. There are so many stories I could tell. The gentleman from the Crossings whose grandchildren gave him an iPad and he didn't know how to use it. And they said, oh, Grandpa, it's just really easy. Just get on. You'll be able to figure it out. Well, there was no way he could figure it out. So we pointed him to the Victoria Library that has people that are on staff all the time. The Victoria Library is open, and you can either go in and have them help you with your questions. You can have our staff at each of our locations call them to help you with your questions, or you can call them yourselves. We've also gotten staff that are specially trained, our tech associates, so that they can help you 1 day a week in Chaska, 1 day a week in Waconia, 1 day a week in Chanhassen. So you can have training right here in whichever library you happen to be located. Also note that we have a number of activities that we've gone through this year. But as you talk about value, I know that you're always thinking of numbers, and that we have in the very back of this sheet, this brochure, our statistics for 2018. If you'll notice, as most libraries across the nation, because we're in an upswing in the economy, most libraries don't have as much circulation. People buy books. They're going to the bookstores. Our circulation actually went up this year. And when you look at total circulation, you see 997,988, almost a million. But you need to go down to the electronic materials circulation. You'll see 90,662. If you look at our door count is up from last year. So people walking in the door, what we call library visitors. But don't look just at that. Look at our website visits, because some people only visit us by the website. It's a different world out there today. And you'll notice our website visits are 187,609. It's incredible, the things that we have available for people. And we do that because that's what people need and want. And we are a service of the county and the city to help those people with their needs and their wants. And right now, so that you can find out exactly what's been happening in your community specifically, I'm going to call on Janet Karius.
Hi, Janet.
Hello,
Welcome.
thank you. To follow Heidi's system-wide information, I've got a few statistics measuring activity at the Chaska Library that you might find interesting. The Chaska Library, we check out an average about 10,000 print or media items a month. We have about 35 people per open library hour visit the library. And in 2018, we had 1,289 new people get library cards, and that averages to be about 100 cards issued per month. And 30% of the total Carver County Library public computer usage is at the Chaska Library. So that averages about 1,200 individual sessions per month. Let's see here. Also, for the a little bit more than 40% of our circulation is of adult books, audio materials and DVDs, and a little less than 60% are youth materials circulating. There's that little tiny piece that's the interlibrary loan, so that's materials that we bring in from outside of our library system that represent about 1% of our circulating activity. I want to talk a little bit more about our collection. Recent special boost to the collection of materials at the Chaska Library includes a generous donation from the state of Ruth Stevenson toward books in large print. A longtime library patron, Ruth appreciated the library collection in large print, and she wanted others to benefit from from an increase in a healthy amount of those materials. And our friends of the Chaska Library recently voted to increase the amount that was spent on the library's Lucky Day collection of popular materials. Supporting the recent community center exhibit on Holocaust survivors who later settled in Minnesota, we assembled 10 copies of Jack and Rochelle, A Holocaust Story of Love and Resistance, with a reading group guide of background material into what we call a book club in a bag kit. And as local school district 112 focused on intercultural harmony, I was reading about that in the Chaska Herald, the front page last week. We developed a book club kit for the books Blind Spot, Hidden Biases of Good People, and A Good Time for the Truth, Race in Minnesota. These were purchased with funds from our friends at the Chaska Library and the Library Foundation of Carver County, and they're available for checkout. And whether it is providing a warm-up spot with hot beverages and bathrooms during the Hometown Holidays events, hosting technology training for seniors collaborating with the Chaska Police Senior Resource Fair, or building a display promoting the recent Transfer of Memory exhibit at the community center, the Chaska Library strives to reflect and enhance city events. Something else with our collection, a new addition was Memory Maker kits funded by a SHIP grant. These kits are intended to share with people experiencing memory loss, and the contents developed to help spark memories, aid conversations and positive interactions between family members, friends, and caregivers with those who have memory challenges. We also, at the Chaska Library, offered a robust series of programs led by experts from the Alzheimer's Organization, the Metropolitan Area Agency on Aging, I have trouble with that, and Ridgeview Hospital on topics such as advanced care planning, what's new for Medicare, preventing falls, and dementia conversations. And Heidi touched upon this. In addition to our knowledgeable staff at our service and information desk, we offer some specialty help desks. So as Heidi was talking about the technology associates that are at the Victoria Library, we have Scott at our desk at Chaska on Mondays. So if you come in, you'll get that little bit of a higher level of understanding of technology issues. And May through August, on Saturdays from 10 to 1, we have a University of Minnesota Extension Master Gardener that's there to, people bring in plants and have them diagnose their gardening issues. And other enhanced experiences at the Chaska Library have come with a recent partnership with the Eastern Carver County Schools Community Education, which brings us a program called ECFE on Wheels. The school district's early childhood family educators provide parenting advice while leading the children and caregivers through activities. And then our own talented staff have developed a special series of programming for kids exploring STEM. I think you know STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math principles. They have stories, crafts, games, and tools that are part of the STEM themed children's programming throughout the year, and especially during summer. And mentioning summer, we're going to have a lot of full schedule of children's programming, activities, performances, and a program to keep our kids reading through the summer months. I think our next slide welcomes questions that you might have about the Chaska Library and the library system.
So, how long have you been the branch manager, Janet?
Well, 25 years
That's
ago.
all?
I started in 1994. I was the Chaska branch manager. And so I haven't been solely at Chaska. I've been around the system, but for about the last 10, I've been back at being the Chaska
And I
branch.
hear you might be leaving us?
I am.
Well, I would like to just give you a little something from Chaska, just to say thank you for all you've done. I don't know if you have one of these.
I do not.
Well, you do now.
Oh, wonderful.
So thank you so much for being part of that.
Thank you very much. It's been a thrill every day.
So do we have a replacement?
We have posted for a replacement for the position. So, and we're hoping to interview sometime in early May.
And your last day is?
May 31st.
See, we're gonna miss her because Janet's like an extension of our staff. So I feel like I see Janet as much as anybody else. So we're gonna really miss her.
Oh, you're kind. This has been a terrific run, and I've been thrilled every day to work. I particularly with the Chaska Library, but with the library system.
Awesome.
I love the community. So
Again, thank you. Thank you for your service to our city.
thank you very much. Oh, this has been pleasant. Yeah. So do you have any questions for us?
I had one for
Yes.
Heidi. You mentioned talking about the technology desk and some of the technology help. Is an appointment necessary or simply drop by as issues arise?
an appointment is not necessary, but sometimes it might be optimal. We had a little problem with system-wide just recently, and all hands were on deck to take care of that problem.
Yeah.
So for your benefit, I would say call and make an appointment, but normally you can drop in.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Anything else?
Anyone else have any questions for?
I have a question, I just have a comment. I mean, I think this is, like, all the words are great, and I like all the numbers, but to me what sticks out is the pictures. I've always been a picture person. Because I think part of being the best small town in Minnesota is gathering community, and that's what you see in those pictures. You see kids, you see older adults, you see active older adults, you see all ranges, and it's great, because that's the sense. When I first moved here, I will self-admit, I was a younger in generation, and didn't understand the purpose of a library still, and kind of online mentality. And then I had kids, and then I realized how valuable the library is. And I forget the woman's name that does this Top Time Story Time. She's great. You know, we brought my kids to that many times early, and still do. And I have a backpack full of books sitting at home right now that my kids have checked out. So it's just, to me, it's just amazing to have that. It's what helped builds that small town community feel when you have a vibrant library system. So thank you.
I do have a question, but a little background. So, you know, when I was little, probably like as soon as I could read, this probably is no surprise to anyone in this room, is that, you know,
were talking.
I was talking and reading. I was talking. You're definitely
Just
right about that. And, you know, it's one of those things that I would, like, my family didn't have a lot of money, so, you know, we would, like, the one place that was always free was to go to the library. And I would walk out there probably, like, you know, 3.5 feet tall, and walk out with a stack of books, like, over the top of my head, because that's as much as I could carry. And that was always my safe place, my place where I could, you know, just learn and discover the world. But that was a long time ago. Even between that and adulthood, libraries didn't change a whole lot. There's still the Dewey Decimal System, still cards and all that stuff. You know, what are some of like the biggest changes that you've seen in the past 25 years?
Well, I think it's the digitization of information. The reading, and that is still the story times, the connecting children to books, adults to books, and that is pretty solidly the same. But that information source, when I started at the Chaska Library, I remember when our staff room was 90% stacks of old magazines, or the back issues of magazines. And the children would go to the Reader's Guide for periodicals, look up, they needed to do a report on a country or wolves or that, and find out which, you know, Time magazine this month, this would have an article. And we'd have to go back and pull the physical information, and now that information is so accessible. And we have so many databases too at the library that make us really a 24/7 operation, which has been quite exciting. When I started my career, I was typing catalog cards, and when someone says, "Oh, I missed the," no, we don't miss the card at all. But the accessibility of information is quite exciting. That's a great change in the last few years. But my favorite times in the Chaska Library is when we feel like one big living room. We have families and people all over it, you know, and it just feels like a great community living room. Hope that continues with the new building.
To me, one of the things that we sort of have the advantage of being sort of we get to see the inside here because we work here every day, and so the thing that I've seen change over time is how much more revolves around programming. And not just going to the library to check out a book, but actually having the programming that goes along with it. And that's actually been one of the limiting factors of our library, is not having the space to actually properly do that. So to me, it's sort of seeing how that's grown, and they've really grown out of the space, and thinking about the future, I think there's a lot of opportunities that will be able to expand what people are really coming to libraries for, is really to have that programming and the things that provide an educational type of entertainment or you know, just program for, you know, kids and adults to go to.
Anyone else? Thank you again for your awesome report. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, and good luck in your next adventures. All right, next on my list, I have Inclusive Communities Coalition, Carver County, with Cecilia Laube.
Laube.
Laube?
Yeah, you have seen me here. Do you know of Escape in here? Escape. Yes, Cecilia Laube. For those that you don't know me, I'm a Chaska resident. Happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me. So I want to talk to you. You should all have received this flyer. It should be in your package, and I'm going to pass on additional couple more. I don't know that I have copies for everybody, so you may need to share. But really iconic is just the acronym. It's just the acronym for Inclusive Community Coalition, Carver County. And what iconic is about is really, it's as a parent of a child with autism, right, which it was diagnosed 10 years ago, I grew up very worried, right? And I'm still worried of what his future is going to look like, right? What are the opportunities that is going to have? And as I was learning, and I was learning about the disability and learning about our community, I decided we needed to change things because that future was not looking as bright as it should be. So I started Iconic with several partners back in 2016, right, 3 years ago. And why is because as you are, and some of you may have the same experience, as a parent with a child with disability, you get to deal with multiple parties, right? If someone said one time it takes a village, oh boy, it takes a village. So you get to interact with multiple organizations and multiple providers. So as I was interacting with them, I realized, hey, why don't we get together? We can do a lot better if we get together. We can really look at some commonalities, avoid duplications, and look for closing some gaps that currently exist. So we decided to get together. Today we have 15 members of different organizations within our county. Others are statewide, and we'll continue growing. We have really our mission. This is not working. Our mission, as you can read, can you see the screen? And again, you can read on the flyer, right? What we're really trying is to improve the life of people with disabilities, right? To really build an inclusive community, which means acceptance, right? Ultimately, it means acceptance, not just a physical space. It means acceptance and embracing differences. So we have three main objectives. One is we want to increase knowledge about autism. Inclusion, right? So what we're trying to is you can go to our website and look at the news, and we have a calendar where we're really showing and displaying all the various different days so people could be aware of, as well as in that calendar are ideas of how you can raise that awareness, right? Many times people don't know about those disabilities, so that's really the starting point. But at the same time, we want to celebrate those examples in our community of organizations that may be already embracing that inclusion. For example, we had Charter Bank, right, that step up and saying, hey, yes, I have no problem, I will display it. In fact, that's my son. He's displaying his art. And I'm like, cool, thank you. And they didn't even hesitate. So we want to display that, as well as we want to celebrate the innovation of schools such as Chan High School, where they have created a unified club where they're spending time together and things that they're common, right? So that's what inclusion is about. And what we want to do and we want to see, it's a lot more examples of that. We want it as that's the key of our mission, is we want to increase the awareness, but also motivate and reward and recognize those great examples. The second objective that we have is equal opportunities. And one of the areas that we're really focusing on is unemployment. We want to really change the fact that only 30% of people with disabilities are employed. That's not right. When we have such a low employment rate, it really is an untapped pool of talented people. And there's a lot of misconceptions, there are a lot of lack of opportunities or lack of knowledge about those talents. And we want to change that. So we want to talk about the programs that already exist, and we also want to talk about what are the things that we need to change in order to move that needle. We don't want to stay in 30% any longer. So, and I will give you a personal example. I work with my son there's some computer programming that is really helpful for him. And many times he's doing it at a speed at which I cannot keep up. He's a visual learner. The program is visual. It takes on his strengths. I could not keep up. He's just doing it much higher than anybody else. So as a parent, I'm sitting there and saying, I cannot let this talent go to waste. And believe me, it won't happen. But also as a community member and an employer, I'm saying, I want that talent. I want that skill in my company because that skill is going to create innovation, is going to drive change, is going to challenge things. So what do we need to do is really align opportunities with their strengths rather than focusing on the things that they cannot do. And that's what we want to change. And today their programs, one of our partners, the vocational rehab, they have a customized employment program that does exactly that. So we need to get the word out. We need to get employers to participate, to open their doors, to change the mindset that, oh boy, this is going to cost me more. No, those are fully funded programs. There's no other penny. There's no extra cost. But we need to get that out. There's also Workforce Center, so they have a summer program, which is actually available for kids 14 years old and older. Many parents don't even know that. And it's a fact that if we get our kids work experience earlier, they're going to be able to get and gain those skills and leave high school or go to secondary school with those skills that are really needed. At the same time, we're using the coalition to really feed that knowledge back to our schools, right? And to make sure that the kids are being trained on skills that are really needed for the future. I'm going to give you another example. One of the things that I always challenge at school is when they were training my son, they were saying, hey, we're going to teach him to go to the mall to buy clothes. I'm like, why would you take him to the mall? No one goes to the mall. And in 5 years, no one will. So why don't you teach him to buy online? If you do that, fantastic. That's a great skill. Yes, he needs that. So those are the type of challenges that we want to not only take the information that we're seeing, but really feed it back to our schools. So then we can really prepare our children to have the right skills and be able to get those jobs, which they really deserve the opportunity, and they are able. And lastly, we want to focus on programs that are really specialized for people with autism. Today, there are companies such as Microsoft that they're really focusing on autism, right? There's Amazon, which is really creating a program for people with disabilities. We want to bring that awareness to the community and reinforce that because those are the right programs. With such a focus on diversity and inclusion today at the workplace, it is the opportunity to raise this, to put an effort and to invest. And lastly, another objective that we have is social networking, right? People with disability, like any of us, they want to belong. The sense of belonging is really strong, and many times they feel themselves isolated. So we want to change that. We want to really integrate them. And for that, we're really focusing on unified events. Some of our partners, we have Special Olympics, which is a pioneer on that space. And we're really following that model. And it's a fantastic program. So we really want to reinforce more of that, which means people are really finding something in common, which we all have. We share same interests. So rather than focusing on the differences that we have, we want to refocus on what we have in common and really integrate them. So we have another partner, Reach for Resources, that talks about Valentine's Day. Many people with disabilities spend their Valentine's Day alone because they don't have anybody else. So they have created a program on which they can come and celebrate together. Wouldn't that be wonderful to have in Chaska? The Curly Center, for that matter. So that will be a lot of fun. And then we talk about some specific programs about adaptive swim and gym, in which they're really organizations such as the Chaska Community Center, another partner, are realizing that sometimes crowded spaces is the one thing that is limiting people with disabilities. So they're creating specific hours in which is quieter, fewer people, so then people, families like myself, we feel a little bit more freedom to really enjoy the time, rather than being worried about how many people are around you. So all of that is really what Iconic is about. And we are really happy on what we're creating. We are engaged, and we're hoping that you will stand behind us, that you're going to help us. For that reason, you have with you, or you may share, I have a letter that is indicating what are the areas which we see there will be a great benefit if you can help us and collaborate with us. One, community education. We would love to really create a reference guide. As a parent with a child with disabilities, it's overwhelming, the amount of things that you need to address, the amount of information that's out there, but normally you don't know where to start. You don't know how to navigate the system. So what we're suggesting is just like the booklet that we receive about real estate in Carver County, we want to create one that says a guide for special needs. One that says, hey, welcome, we like you here and we're here to support you. How different would that be? That would be great. That will distinguish us from anybody else. And that as a parent, as a resident, as a taxpayer, I'll be tremendously grateful, because then you'll make my life easier than what is already complicated. Another area in which we're looking at is employment. We talk about, we would like to create a video. We're really capturing the impact of employment. I think you will all be probably crying if you hear the stories and what it means for someone with disability to have a paying job, meaning that it's not just, they're not being seen just as people that they can pick up the trash or clean up tables, but actually they're seen as people that they're extremely smart, that they can really do any job that they want, that, yeah, may require some modifications. But who doesn't need some modifications? And lastly, we talk about some unified social events. So sponsoring field trips, right? I would love to see us, for example, creating, I don't know, baseball lovers. Why don't we all get on a bus, right, and we go to the Twins game, or one of the games here local. But the point being is where we are really emphasizing a common interest. There are a lot of baseball lovers. That includes everybody. So why not invite everybody? And you will say, well, but those things happen today. True, but I can tell you for someone with disabilities today, they immediately say, no, it's not for me, because likely they're not going to have a bus that will lift a wheelchair, or someone that is going to help me push through the elevator. Or for us, for example, as a family, you know, my son has some sensory issues, so they're probably not going to have a box that is going to keep him entertained or cover his ears for the noise. Those simple things make a huge difference. And that is what real inclusion is about, is understanding that that person wants to come, wants to go to the game. It just may mean that he needs some headphones. That's all. It makes that small difference. So those are the other areas that we would love to see you helping us, participate, supporting us, because we think that it's going to make a huge difference for our community. And the other flyer that you have is we have created a Facebook group, in which that group has been created for 3 years. And we have several participants, and we would love to see more community members, just like yourself. I'm the administrator, so just request access and I'll grant it. We would love for everyone to learn. It doesn't need to be someone with disability. I would love to see people, neurotypical, non-disability individuals, that they just want to learn. That they just want to learn about what are those families really dealing with. What are they interested, right? What is the challenge? And just so we can really come together as a community, because believe me, the answer sometimes is so obvious that people don't see it. But the answer could simply be just turn off the light. And then it may allow that person to stay in the meeting, in the group. That's all. That's all that it takes. There's no much money. It just needs willingness. And that's what we want to raise. We want to raise a really willing community. With that, I'm going to open up to questions.
You know, one thing I'll mention real quickly, at the community center and park and rec department, we did, I don't know, maybe about 6 months ago, brought on an adaptive coordinator position, Tanya, and so the adaptive swim and gym classes have been offered, have really been a nice addition, but they're really sort of a start to some of the stuff that they're going to be looking at. I think Cecilia points out something that's really sort of spot on. You know, our youngest child, Lincoln, has autism, and the biggest challenge is there's a lot of services that are out there, but trying to actually figure out where to go and where to start is overwhelming. And so I do see that, especially now that we have somebody in that's dealing with adaptive programming and have the connections with community ed, that having some kind of a central resource to get people sort of, you know, a class or whatever to sort of teach people, what do? You know, if your kid gets diagnosed with this, what are the things that you do? What are the services that exist, and how do you do it? Because there is no guide that's out there. It's very, very challenging to sort of navigate your way through. So I think it's fantastic that, you know, thinking about how do we sort of pull these groups together, because there's a lot of people doing great things, but they're not necessarily doing them together.
I think that would be the mark of the best small town in Minnesota, where you're intentional. And I haven't heard anything that you said that makes me think in a reactive sense. Everything, your entire message is so proactive, it's so intentional, it's so go out there and let's make that future that we want. And in the best small town in Minnesota, one of the best mission statements I ever heard from an organization is they called itself a place to belong and a place to become. And if that isn't happening here, well, then how good a town are we? And that would be our fault. So this is really inspiring. And I think of food allergies, and I think of panic attacks, and there's different things, all kinds of challenges that could be dealt with, and bring this all together in that kind of a holistic plan ahead and intentional approach. So thank you, Cecilia. I just thought that very inspiring. It's where we have to be.
I'm going to be honest, I'm selfish, right? I'm starting it because I'm personally touched, and I want my son to be stopped, and I do this in the community. He has been, maybe you have encountered him with a meltdown, right? And I want the community to see him more than just a kid that was making, you know, some noise. He can do much more. That's why I go to say, hey, can you display his art? He creates great art. I'm like, damn, I'll buy it. But he's also, I wanted them to see a future, right? And that's why we need to connect, right? So there's a lot of people, but we need to connect. There's a lot of things that we can do together. And there's just the simplest things sometimes, right? I just learned one day of an opportunity that an employee was asking, which was about filing, right? So I passed it to the school, right? And say, hey, make sure that the kids are learning this, because if they do, there's a job for them, right? So, and that's the idea. That's what we could do. We can train and learn an internship at the curling center. Why not? Become a coach. I don't know. Why couldn't they, right? I mean, if you think about them, one of the strengths, I'm just looking at my son, is like their precision. They're really precise, and they can really score really high. So it's just a matter of finding right, that opportunity. And we just, that's where I met one of the councils, right, which invited me, which very much is, we went to the Southwest Chamber of Commerce, and we had a couple presentations. And I know there are many people out there that want to participate. They just don't know how to. And that's what we're trying to create with Iconic too, to say, come here, we can guide you on how you can participate. We have gained 2 employers right now that they're willing to open their doors, explore opportunities, just in 2 conversations, right? So it took me 2 hours of my time. Why wouldn't I do that? Then we have gained actually one small business that wants to volunteer on the Unify event that is coming up in June. Fantastic. So it's out there. We just need to make it happen, and it's all possible.
So Cecilia, I remember when we first met, I was very inspired by, you know, what we were
And now
our
you change your mind.
It's like- So, and I still am very inspired, and you know, it's one of those things where, you know, there's one of those things that resonates because, you know, there's so many things that resonate here, but you know, when we talk about community and talk about problem solving, we talk about some of the challenges, you know, for as a parent, you know, when you run across a challenge, you would like to think, and nobody tells you this when you're a parent, as a first-time parent, that, oh, yeah, anytime you have a problem, you just go to your pediatrician and it's all good and it's just taken care of. And if you're lucky, that's it, right? But for a good chunk of the population, a pretty sizable chunk, you're gonna run across problems where you need support beyond just the, you know, here's a Band-Aid or here's a shot or a pill or like a prescription of some antibiotics and you're done, right? There's gonna be other challenges ahead in life that may need other services, and it's not always as easy to find those things. And, you know, and to know like who are the good providers that you wanna go to, the experts in that field, and who are the ones who are maybe specialty that are really difficult to find because it's a very specific specialty. Or on the flip side, as those children become adults, you know, right now, one of the challenges we have in the city is, you know, like I was talking to the management over at Target and asking them about what are some of their challenges. They said, you know, finding people is a really tough challenge. Well, you know, if there are things that people who are, you know, in the right positions can, you know, with the right skill sets can do, you know, there's people here willing to fill those needs. Can we find those balance? So I think what I'm getting to is just the long way around is that this discussion shouldn't end here. Right?
I hope
and
not.
I think that's probably the goal here. It's that the question is that how can we continue the discussion and find ways to build these synergies and continue moving forward to create things that are meaningful that will help us in the future. So I thank you very much for coming and very much appreciate it. And I think it's really important that the rest of the council hears this, because it's not just about you, it's about, you know, the broader community.
You bet, and I completely agree. I think that this is an opportunity to become an example for the rest of the state. You will not find anywhere any other, in fact, that's what I get from many of our statewide partners, that there's no other organization like ours, this coalition, anywhere else in the state, and that's why they're so proud and engaged in participating with us. So this is the opportunity to put, you know, Carver County on the map. Chaska City, for that matter, if it wants to go first. But there's a lot that could be done without a large amount of money. It really doesn't take much to just open a door. It's just, like I said, it takes willingness, and that's all it takes. So thank you so much, and you know where to find me if you need more information, and thank you.
Thank you.
We'll talk about this at staff tomorrow, because it is something that's been a lot more of a focus. I know the police department's also worked with creating sort of a lost person service, and so there's been a lot more that we've been talking about, but we'll be a little bit more deliberate about, you know, talking about some of the opportunities to partner.
We also have MRCI in town as far as employment.
Yeah, and that's a huge resource, so.
And I wanna say, so we have connected with MRCI, so some of our partners already leveraged them, and then we're looking for bringing them on the coalition as well. And the police department is part of the coalition too. So you can look at that. Again, I think there's several groups that they're doing something. The concept here is, okay, what can we do together, right, to change, to move the needle.
Cecilia, I do have one question, and maybe I'm just missing it, but if, for like people listening and ourselves, if we wanted to get involved more, I'm just not seeing contact information. What's the best way to get involved?
So, great question, and the reason is because, you know, all the limitations that we have, but you feel free to contact me, and you guys have my email address, so by all means, anytime, any day, and I can coordinate it. The goal just started, right? So we just launched the website. So we're migrating to, okay, well, now we need to create an email address, right? Of course, one of those questions like, okay, who's going to watch the email address, right? And who's going to be not in, well, you know it's going to be me, but that's okay. So, but in the meantime, we don't have it yet.
Perfect.
Is that all right?
Yeah, of course.
And if you join the Facebook group, then you can start getting involved right away.
Perfect, thank you.
We can help promote that too. When you get up to a point where you feel ready to actually go out, we can actually help do that through the city too. So,
Yeah, it would be great. I mean, let's get the word out. Creating an email doesn't take that much, so I will say let's do it. Let's not wait. Just can create an email in 2 minutes. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else want to speak, visitor presentation? Okay, we'll move on to item 6, approve previous meeting minutes. Again, if there are no corrections or additions, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Wang,
Second?
second by Councilmember Grau to approve previous meeting minutes. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Next is item 7, consent. Which are items that need approval but not necessarily conversation. Again, at this point, I see Mr. Schramm's here.
He looks like he's sweating a
You
little.
And I'm not going to put you on the spot, but if you like, do you have good news for us?
Well, the good thing is we got the
Aaron,
federal.
just say your name for the record, sorry, please.
Aaron Schramm, Schramm House Brewery. We have the federal locked in now, the federal brewer's permit.
Done?
And hopefully the local here real soon. The state right now is proving a little bit of a difficulty. So the good part is I got the Department of Health coming out Wednesday. So if that goes well, at least that side of it will be done, the production side. It's the Department of Ag right now. I've got a kind of a funny situation. So if any of you guys can know of anybody in the Department of Ag and the liquor division, I'd like to know. But we've been in contact for 2 months with 2 of their officers, and there's a production side and a retail side. And so we go through plan review at the state level, all that too. That's all done. Now we're at the inspection side. So that's the only thing that's holding us up right now is that inspection, which would also allow us to do production as well as sell to the customers. And for some reason, the last 2 weeks, we've been getting a hold of an inspector that now the email's bouncing back, the phone calls we can't get a hold of them. So we're trying to go up the food chain right now to figure out are they no longer a part of the Department of Ag or whatnot. So and people are on vacation a lot right now, so we're having a hard time of trying to get an inspector booked for the next 2 weeks out, basically. So that's what's holding us up right now. Besides, obviously, the local. I think we're really close in the local here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tonight we have approval for the license, basically pending completion. And I did speak with Officer Personius, who's going through the background check and everything. He was out sick the last couple of days, so that's why we're not complete. We thought we would be tonight. He said he's got 1 more day of work, and so he just needs to get well and back in the office, and we'll be done. So.
Yeah, so we're really close, and like I said, I think the soft openings could happen. It just depends on these last couple of inspections now.
So did the federal actually come through with the lessons, or is it the hardship thing?
The hardship.
Oh.
And by the way, Senator Jensen did help too, yeah. But it was funny. We had to do a hardship letter just to kind of get movement, which, it's all right. It's the way it works. So yeah,
right.
We're real close, but yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, let me know.
Good, well, thanks for the update.
Yep.
And I don't foresee this being a problem here, unless Bostrom has an issue, but.
No issues here.
All right, is there anyone else that has anything on consent items? All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve consent.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Wang,
Second?
second by Councilmember Hatfield to Approved consent agenda. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Moves us to item 8. Adopt resolution 2019-31 approving joint powers agreement with Carver County for Arboretum area transportation study.
Mayor and Councilmember, the item in front of you tonight is proposing a partnership on a basically a transportation study with Carver County to look at the areas up on Bavaria Road, 82nd Street, Highway 5, and 41. So basically that area that's surrounding the Arboretum. This is an area that actually encompasses 3 different cities, as well as Carver County, obviously, and 82nd Street eventually does become a county road when it is upgraded. And so basically the objective of this transportation plan would be to come up with the final design of what the road sections would look like through this area and get it to a point where the county can really go out and start soliciting dollars to try to get these projects funded. This is since the Carver County did establish the transportation sales tax, which was at least a couple of years ago now, one of the strategies that they've used is to go out and complete as many of these studies as possible, so that as opportunities pop up with different programs through the federal or state government or at the local level, that we're prepared to be able to go out and get them and apply for them and be in a position that if they do become available, we can move forward on these projects. Good example of that is the Engler Boulevard corridor section, as well as the Highway 41 section through downtown here. We basically went through transportation corridor study with Carver County on those, and then that has put us in contention then for getting dollars as they pop up in different programs at the federal and the state level. So this would be taking a similar type of approach under the county's cost share model. The city of Chaska's contribution towards the overall cost of this study would be 3% of the total cost, which the estimate now is $800,000 for the county study, so that'd be $24,000 for the city of Chaska's contribution. The city of Victoria and the city of Chanhassen would also be contributing to this as well. So we do recommend moving forward to work with Carver County and getting this plan in place. Just a note, just because we're doing this plan I don't want to set the expectation that these roads are getting improved now. These are the things that we need to do to put ourselves in a position to be able to get the funding in the future. 82nd Street in particular is an interesting one because it borders 2 cities, or it goes through 2 cities. It really services Victoria, and a lot of development that would support at least the city's contribution towards that hasn't occurred yet. And so so timing on that one is going to be an interesting one. It is one that in the future does need to get completed. It's just a question of when's the right time to do it. But this study really lays out when the time is right, what would we need to do, us in the county, to make that transportation improvement there. So with that being said, we do recommend approving this contract.
What is like this area in basically the extension of Lyman to 18? What is that zone? Is that residential or is that commercial? Or?
It's zoned as residential. Right now it's rural residential, so that's 1 house per 10 acres, or 4 per 40. However, we did do a study, joint study with the Arboretum, Carver County, City of Chaska. I think Chanhassen was involved too, some time ago, that looked at how you could actually potentially develop this as a clustered area, sort of similar to what Chevelle was, because Chevelle was actually classified in the same category where you saw one house per 10 acres, but in essence, 60% of the land out there was preserved as open space, and then you just sort of clustered these pockets of development into specific locations, so it increased the density of the development while still keeping the rural character out there. That's the direction that study sort of said that this area would want to move. But it is a rural residential now, but there would be the potential of having something like Chevelle out there.
Is it looking like a possibility that whether the ARB moves their main entrance off of that or an additional entrance off of that?
I think that's always a potential, because I don't know how the Highway 5 entrance ever gets much better. I think that's
It's
one
not
of
gonna get much better
Yeah, I
unless
think
it's
that's
swirling in return.
that's one of the things that's going to be determined in this study is exactly where that goes. And if that ended up going on to 82nd Street, that could potentially bring in different sources of funding too.
So one of the questions that I had was that, so the Bavaria Downs is actually like right on that, is actually that big chunk of that land that's abutting where the study will be. And so at least, as I recall, that part of the reason why that land never really sold to development was that there's no like sewer lines or anything up that way, and having to get that up there would be like a huge investment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's a very non-traditional development area, and it's because of utilities.
Yeah.
The utilities basically extend to the north end of the Symphony Hills neighborhood now, and then there's a huge ravine that goes down there. So to actually get sewer underneath that ravine and back up is really difficult. It requires some kind of a lift station that we'd have to have out there, a big one, which is expensive. And so that's why I think if you were going to see something happen out there, it would have to include some kind of density like Chevelle to be able to afford to pay for it. Which if it did, then that drives some of the transportation needs out there too, because then you're going to have a lot more cars than just one house per 10 acres. I think when we're all said and done and our communities are sort of fully developed, 82nd Street I think is going to end up being a pretty important connector for the county. And I think it's primarily, especially with like the city of Victoria, I think with the city of Victoria going to Chanhassen for high school, that's a big connector between the high school and those communities, or that community. So it is one that needs to get done. To me, the big question is going to be, how do you pay for it?
Because, like you say, Victoria is the benefactor of it. We have no development there, and we have the most frontage.
Well, and based on the current, it's a real challenge with this, because the main benefactor, if you did the road right now, the main benefactor would be the city of Victoria. And but based on how the county's cost share model lays out, they wouldn't be the ones that are actually really contributing to the actual cost of the project. In the future, that's definitely a benefit to the city of Chaska too, as development occurs out there. So to me, it's going to be more of a question of timing of the improvement, and the timing of the improvement is going to sort of determine who ends up paying for it. Eventually we need to pay our fair share, but it ends up being, when's the right time to do it when it's actually a benefit to the community too.
Matt, how do you predict this, but what would our fair share look like at that given moment in time? It's 3%, 24,000 of this project. What might fair share look like down the road, just for the taxpayers and the neighbors we serve?
Well, I probably couldn't give a dollar amount, but I could give a percent. So it sort of depends on whether or not, so there's really sort of two tracks of the county's policy. One is a development-driven model, where the improvements are done because development is driving it. If that's the case, typically cities would pay about 30% of the cost. If it's a capital improvement project where the county's doing it because it's time to do it, then it's typically about 20% of the cost is covered. You know, to give you a sense, I don't know how this relates to the length of, you know, County Road 44 up here, but we just had the agreement on, for the last meeting, on that, and that section, not including the interchange, was $5 million. And so, no, $10 million. $10 million. Our share of it was $5 million of the overall $20 million project. So we had about, you know, 25 to 30% of that project, and that's considered development driven. The thing that's going to make this real expensive is that last sort of leg. Right now, 82nd Street sort of pops back north of Michael's Foods. In the end, it's going to go south of Michael's Foods, but to cross that ravine, you're going to have to build a big bridge. And so it's not going to be an inexpensive project.
And so part of the scope of the study is to understand like the potential traffic flow implications as well, right?
Yeah, and it's really, you know, when we go through these, you know, each of the cities is going to sort of go through and talk about what are the things that are real important for the county to consider as they're designing this. Yeah. You know, so, you know, for instance, is this going to be a road like Hunter Mark, or is it going to be a parkway? You know, is it gonna, you know, is there gonna be a bridge, or are they okay with going north with it? You know, I mean, there's those types of, you know, or the Arboretum. Where's the Arboretum gonna pop out? What does Highway 5 look like in the end? You know, there's not a lot they can do with Highway 5 because there's, I mean, it's water on basically either side of Highway 5 in front of the Arboretum. So what this study will do will look at sort of the factors that the county needs to take into consideration from each of the communities, how that impacts the design, and then we'll also come up with cost estimates too. So I'll be able to answer with more than 1% after the study's done.
And not only will that be the happy result of the study, but then we'll also know, might have a better idea what Highway 5 might look like, because it might have to look a certain way. The entrances and the impact on the Arboretum in and out, and maybe what the University of Minnesota feels about that. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to have a clustered development, sort of like the Cheval you mentioned, whether or not and where that might go. And, okay.
I mean, the interesting thing with the study that was done on the development there was that basically sort of the borders between the Arboretum and the neighborhood that would be out there didn't exist. I mean, it was sort of had the Arboretum sort of pulling into the development where they'd actually, you know, be part of the design and landscaping of it so that you could create almost sort of a model landscape community going through there. So it could be, it really sort of depends on the prerogative of the Arboretum. You know, we've seen the Arboretum go anywhere from being, we want to be just the Arboretum and we don't want to really interact with what's going on around, to when we went through that study, they really wanted to be a part of what was happening around them. So, so this study will tell a lot about that.
Any kind of a time frame on when the study starts, it's over and ready to report back?
Yeah, it takes about 18 months to 2 years to complete.
Does it include environmental impact, or is it just the traffic flow costs?
It probably looks at the initial stuff. It's probably not a full environmental impact.
Yeah. This isn't some, you know, the end of the project will not be complete design ready for implementation. So there is some level of environmental impact that's needed to be understood. You know, like on 5, like Matt was talking about, you know, you've got water on either side, so you need to understand what is the buildability of that, what would need to happen if you're going to expand lanes, you know, what's even possible. So there'll be some initial work that would be done to understand that, but it wouldn't be a full scale, you know, environmental impact.
So just from a kind of a phasing perspective, this is really the study to really help identify the requirements and also you know, kind of the rough ballpark costing so we can, you know, so then the respective agencies and groups can go back and start looking for funding.
In the planning world, this would be called a concept study.
Right, yep.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's just to kind of see,
Exactly. Yep.
All it is.
do we put a 4-lane in or a 2-lane?
Yep.
Do we put a bridge in or we don't put a bridge in?
Yep.
I mean, you know, we always talk about the Arboretum on Highway 5. I mean, to me, you just build a bridge next to the other one. And that way 5's open the whole time and you build that bridge and you just have separation of the road. I mean, that's the only way that's gonna happen. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of thinking going on, because obviously the lake's on one side, the other side's wetland, and I don't know if they could fill that in enough to make it a usable road.
My gut tells me no.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they would have done it.
Or they would have done it a long time ago.
You know,
No.
that's been the same design of road as long as I've been driving, and that's like just over 10 years. But nobody caught that. God, you guys are slow.
No, I mean,
Jeez, you're slow.
no, I
Come
caught
on, pick it up a little
We
bit.
were trying to think of the right response.
No, there wasn't
Being
even a
polite at all.
groan, there wasn't even a groan out there. But like I said, to me, that's the only way there is. The rest of the places, you know, it's like anything else, it's always doable, but that obviously is there. But yeah, it's just more to see, and then, you know, because it talks about bike trails and pedestrian trails, and, you know, with the Arboretum there, you're gonna have to have both of those, and tie it with our current trail system, and, you know, so. Well, it'll be interesting to see the outcome.
Yeah, I think it's a good strategy that the counties had to go out and complete these studies so that they're ready for, you know, for these projects when dollars do appear. So, and this is clearly one that's going to have an impact on multiple communities.
Is there still that possibility that the county's gonna front the money till it's, is that?
Probably depends on how much it costs.
Because that, you know, that kind of was out there for a while.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if it's still
Yeah, you know, the timing on this one, that one of the challenges is going to be, how do you do anything with Highway 5 if 82nd Street isn't done first?
Yep.
exactly, and that's why it's so driven, because we keep saying, we're not interested in 82nd Street because we have no development out there.
Yep.
And like I said, we're gonna get the biggest bill out of this process. And with really, at this point, the least amount of impact back to us, maybe at some point. But, you know, Victoria and MnDOT's gonna be the winner, because they're gonna have a secondary road running next to Highway 5 in a very congested area, and now all of a sudden they can split it up. You know, you figure if you just take the school traffic off of Highway 5, what that would probably do, a lot. A lot, so. And it's kinda like, the 44 interchange, you know, that's gonna take that's gonna give the county 5 years on 10 maybe. You know, before then it's a total failure, then they have to do something, but. So, yeah, things take time, you figure a study's 18 months. Construction's 3 years.
And getting it funded.
Planning and
Getting
getting
it
money
funded
is
is
10
another
years.
5 years, so, yeah.
Look how long we've been working to try to get funding from, Carver to Cologne,
Yep.
so. All right, any other questions on this? I mean, this just seems straightforward. Luke, you look like you got a question.
No, just
Oh.
for that. Well, it's, no, I'll just, you know, it's. no,
We'll just keep
it's
going,
good.
all right. If there are no other questions, I would just make a motion to approve. So I have a motion by Councilmember Bostrom, second by Councilmember Wang, adopting resolution 2019-31, approving the joint powers agreement with Carver County for the Arboretum area transportation study. Discussion. I think we pretty well covered discussion. Last call. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moves us on to bills.
Okay.
You want to have a question on a bill?
I do. I have 5 questions.
Oh, wow.
So, just to
You want
forewarn
to
you
have a
guys.
motion to pay the bills?
You gotta have a discussion, you gotta have a second.
All right.
So part of it's, and part of the reason I wanted to just get it out there is I want to make sure that everyone kind of heard the answers too. So some of this is just out of just learning what the bills are. So This first section here, on the first 5 pages, are a whole bunch of resale items to,
That's the golf course.
this is the golf course?
Yeah, so we basically have to, this time of year, you see a lot of that, because we have to basically go and purchase all of our items for the pro shop.
Okay, okay, so that's like, you know, for me, that's like great education, just knowing, okay, that's all pro shop stuff. Although it seems like it's spread out in different areas, or is it all in like this first 5 pages?
I think it's from different companies.
suppliers.
Different,
Different
yeah.
suppliers, so it's broken out, this is broken out by supplier.
The-
not
Yeah,
just
so,
like-
yeah, basically,
Okay.
the bills
Yeah.
are broken out alphabetically by suppliers, so we have probably a dozen suppliers up at the town
So
course.
stuff from like, you know, maintenance, public works, pro shop, it's all gonna be intermingled depending upon who's the supplier, unless you're using the same supplier for something, okay,
Yep.
got it. Let's see, on pages like 15 and 6, and I think there was another one, there's something about meter deposit refunds, what are those?
So those end up being, I believe what those are, is when somebody builds like a house, they have to put a deposit down for actually getting the meter.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so then they get it refunded back to them once they actually get hooked up and everything.
Okay, so I thought, for some reason, I thought it was like parking meters. and
No,
things, okay.
no, that's for our
That's
utility
next week.
meters.
Put the parking meters downtown.
I don't think we have any parking meters, like, whoa. Okay, and then, on page 7, there was an item from, Boyer Ford. What is a sewer mirror?
That's when they go in and scope the
Yeah.
sewers, they have cameras and mirrors in there, and that's
But
how they.
I thought it was strange coming from the Ford dealer, you know, that's, you know, I mean, I would expect it from a sewer supply company.
It
or
could
something,
be
that's
the
why-
mirror on the truck for the sewer.
Yeah,
truck.
I was gonna say, I think it's the mirror on the truck for the sewer department.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
so-
Because if it's Boyer Ford,
Yeah.
it's a Ford, it's a product
That's-
of the truck.
But
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking, but it seemed like it was, it kind of made me ask, like, what is it?
You're overthinking
I'm
this.
overthinking this. So just,
Good questions.
Yeah.
well, just want to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding something. Maybe Ford had some special sewer line or something. I don't know. Just saying.
One of the things you'll notice about our bills that's still an issue is the descriptions get cut off.
Get cut off,
Yes.
so you
And
only
yeah.
get
That's
a
a
piece
part.
of it, and it's
Yeah.
enough to make you wanna ask a ton of
Yes.
questions.
That's exactly it. Because it's like, as I'm kind of going through there, I'm like, wow, this is like, you know, it's, if you know what it is, it's like, okay, no big deal. Like, so page 23, and this is more just a, what is this? Range Services America, what is a range token?
Oh, that's out at the golf course. So if you go out to the range, there's a token to get a bucket of balls.
Oh, okay, gotcha, so that's what
Yeah,
it
aren't they,
is.
they're so simple when somebody explains it to you.
Well, it's like, if you don't ask, you're
Right, no, and
okay,
and if you're not a golfer, you wouldn't know that.
Yep.
not a big golfer, so. It's one of those sports I put in the back burner because I don't have time for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I know that if I got into it, I'd never have time for anything else. Okay, and then the last question here. So on page 29, Munis SaaS, so software as a service, that's what generated this report actually, as I understand it.
Yep.
It's a software as a service. It was like, so the price was like, was it 50K or something like that?
51.
And 51, it looks like it's quarterly?
Yeah, so that actually encompasses all of our utilities. It encompasses everything. It encompasses all of our utilities, all of our financial services.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you consider just with our electric, we have $30 million of revenue a year. So there's a lot of data
Yeah.
that they're doing there. So, yeah, so that's a quarterly fee for the software as a service.
Okay, I was a little surprised because I was thinking, okay, if there's 50,000, it means we're paying like, we're paying 200 a year just for the software as a service. And so that's one of those things. So, and I assume that we have like some contractual obligation over a certain amount of time, right?
We do, and, so we would have done this, I think, 2 or 3 years ago when we actually went to software as a service. One of the big reasons we did is because we were generating way more data than we could deal with on an internal server basis, and we physically ran out of room.
Okay.
Plus, we didn't have backup, and so this gave us sort of that automatic backup too for that. So I think it was 3 years ago when we made the decision to go to a SaaS service.
So how long does this contract go till?
I think it's 5 years.
5 years, so
Yeah.
it'll be another 2.5, 3
Yeah.
years before it's up for.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Cool, that's all I have.
Yep.
On page 30, I noticed there was 94,000 for a control panel.
Yeah, that was, correct me if I'm wrong, Nate, but I think that might be actually for the pump house? Yeah, so, fire department from Shakopee, this is when they had a training session out at our, out at our municipal service building, and they were backing up a vehicle, and they backed, one of their fire trucks right into our well house, and, took the control panel out. And so their insurance covers it, but we have to go through and actually do it first, so.
So they had a, it was part of the fire academy, and they do driving drills, and part of it is learning how to back up and having a spotter there, and something malfunctioned, and, generally human error.
Someone was learning.
It
definitely was training.
And unfortunately, it was not a shining moment in the fire history, but, you know, those things do happen, and luckily insurance is covering it. I saw Tice, they're working on it and getting the building back together. That was quite a while ago. That was last fall.
It took a long time to get that settled with the insurance companies, because that well house has got to be mid-80s. So it's not like anything in there is like super new. And so then it becomes an argument about, you know, what are we actually replacing? Well, you can't replace it with something made in 1980. You know, it's so our big objective is that we couldn't have that well down during the summer. Winter time, it wasn't that big a deal, so we just needed to make sure that we got it up for summer.
Yeah, just looked like a mega expense there.
Oh yeah, yep.
And then the locker room expansion, 23,000. Is that part of an ongoing, or is this a one-time expansion?
That was actually an agreement we had with the school district. We actually added on to the hockey locker rooms for the girls' hockey team. They're paying, I think it's like 75 or 80% of it through a 5-year contract back with us, and so
That must be one of the final payments, because that's
it's
been through there.
Yeah, it got completed before the beginning of the season, I thought.
I don't know, but I know the bills have been
Yeah.
coming through.
It's probably some of the punch list items that were on there.
Okay.
Yep.
I think it is done. I think we talked about that with Park and Rec. And I think it's done for the beginning of this, end of the season, but I think the start of the season it was done.
Yep.
Thank you.
I just had one quick one on the, for the farmer's market. We give like $6,000, is that?
We've been a sponsor of that for the last like 3 years, I think.
Oh, so that's
Our sponsorship. Yep.
All right, anyone else? If not, again, I'd entertain a motion to pay the bills.
Motion to pay the bills.
Motion by Councilmember Hatfield. Second. Second by Councilmember McGraw to pay the bills. Discussion. Hearing none. Nate, we call roll?
Councilmember Hatfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Bostrom?
Yes.
Councilmember Wong?
Yes.
Councilmember Grau?
Yes.
And Mayor Winchell?
Yes. All right, moves us on to other business. Let's start with Councilmember McGraw.
I'm good. I didn't have anything.
Okay, Councilmember Wang?
Just a few things. So on the 19th, I attended the League of Women Voters presentation by Secretary of State Steve Simon. It was a great presentation, very informative about voter security. So that was a very well-attended event. There was also a League of Women Voters candidate forum happening here at City Council Chambers on Thursday the 4th, which is
This
3 days. This Thursday,
Yep.
which is like 3 days from now.
7 o'clock, I believe.
7 o'clock. Yep. I believe there should be a couple of us here. So
And it,
yeah.
also, it will be live, coming live on
from the man behind
on the community cable station and also on YouTube. And then we'll have the recording available on YouTube thereafter. So you don't have to be available at 7 o'clock.
But Thursday Night Live doesn't have the same ring as Saturday Night
But
Live.
yeah,
I'm
well,
just saying.
maybe you can bring some of the flavor of that.
We'll get a good laugh.
Like crickets in that one. See, there's
How about them twins?
for anyone who's still interested, District 112 is still having their equity discussions. Check the District 112 website for more information. I know that there's a number of different sessions that are still holding out for the community, or they're holding so that way the community can provide input. And
Do you know any more about that? I've been hearing about this, but I'm not hearing anything about it.
They've been actually, this is something they've been working on for, geez, I think almost a year and a half now, a couple of years. And so they've been putting together sort of an equity plan. And so they've been doing some of these sessions, like listening sessions. There's been other issues that have popped up in the meantime that have brought more attention to it. But they've actually been going through that planning process for quite some time now. And they're sort of wrapping up, sort of coming up with an overall plan for the district.
And the last thing I've got here is that for anyone who's interested, and this is kind of on the peripheries of Chaska, there is a Jonathan Carver Parkway Corridor Study public information meeting being held on Thursday the 10th, I think. Sorry, Thursday the 10th? No, wait, sorry.
It'd be the 11th.
Thursday the 11th, sorry, Thursday the 11th, you're right.
Yep, the 11th.
Yep, so and that one is on the calendar, so I think there's more information, the county will have some more information on that one as well, so for anyone who's interested.
We've been paying attention to that. I think that you're probably going to see a push to have improvements done on Jonathan Carver Parkway sooner than later because of some of the development stuff that's happening in Carver right now. So it's on the peripheral, but it'll have a pretty direct impact on us, especially considering the new interchange doesn't have access from the west. Anybody accessing our industrial park is going to come from that interchange, and so you know, so we've been paying attention to sort of how that road's going to get ultimately designed. I know they've even talked about restriping it for new lanes and stuff out on the section that they completed north of Mills Fleet Farm.
Very cool.
Oh, you mean making that
The new
double?
section, yeah, yep. So we'll keep tabs on that, but it's something that Carver is in a position now that they're seeing enough development out there that they're probably going to have to do something sooner than later.
Because I heard they got a quick trip going in now.
Yeah, no.
At
And all those houses.
Southwest.
I mean, there's just a ton of houses
So
out
on
there
the
now.
school side, that corner,
Interesting.
right at the intersection.
So basically someone could hop on, hop off on the way into the cities,
Yep.
which makes sense.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
It's actually on the 212 corridor. It's one of only two. It'll be one of only two gas stations all the way to downtown Minneapolis.
That's brilliant, actually.
Yeah.
Unless you stop at Quick Trip or stop at
We
Quick
got one
Trip.
in Cologne, but that's a tough one to cross because you cross it.
Yep, but that's,
Yeah.
Oh.
It'll be the first one all the way from Norwood. It'll be nice. I drive that way a lot, so.
Will it too? Can I make it? How much gas I got?
Right, anything else, sir?
nope,
You
that's
good?
it. I'm good, thanks.
Councilmember Bostrom?
A special article in the Herald, looks like we lost a very, very good neighbor in Ray Shimperly. And it was fun to read about all the way he touched, the many ways he touched people's lives. So quite a contributor to the community just by being who he was. Also, I noticed that in the Human Rights Commission minutes that talking about Chaska for everybody, and if that didn't dovetail with what Cecilia Laube was talking about tonight, seems to be a real theme here. Chaska for everyone, a nice way to demonstrate the best small town in Minnesota. And then I wanted to ask Nate about the Human Rights Commission was talking about complete census count and some of the efforts. Is that something that we'll get some more details on here at the council then, and kind of what that means? I looked at the state website, I went to the website and checked out some of the forms and stuff. It looks like an incredibly doable project, getting some people lined up. So I just wanted to ask about that.
Yeah, one of the commission members, Sarah Carlson, we were actually talking about this at the last meeting just this past Thursday. A little bit more, but her and I are going to take a closer look at it between now and the next meeting in this, this April meeting coming up, and have a little bit more detail to talk about with other commission members about what the city's role could look like, and more specifically what the Human Rights Commission's role could be in that. So that's something that we're taking a closer look at and we'll be working on. But yeah, she's the one who's brought that up, and I think it's thanks to her for being aware of it. So yeah.
Is the idea behind it to go out to get people to respond to the census?
Yes.
Is that the idea?
Yep.
Because I got on right after the census was done, so I'm not sure.
It's actually a bigger issue than getting people to respond to it is actually,
Right.
it's a challenge. And it means a lot for us as a city to make sure that we count everybody, you know, from a funding standpoint and all that. So it's a good project to consider.
So you would, but how do you determine where those people are that aren't responding?
That's what the program will tell us.
Well, and yeah, to flesh that out, it goes, there's step by step, there's community captains and how to organize teams, and makes the real effort that's very doable to connect and contact and to retrieve that information. And a lot of it, I got the sense that it was making people comfortable in responding to census takers. And if we can get neighbors reaching out to neighbors, you get trusted figures in the community, and now you get a better response. It reduces the mystery factor. Who's in our town? What do we need to be doing? What services and that type of thing. So it helps us build and plan for the future.
Yeah.
Know who we've got here as neighbors.
Well, and it also opens up for funding opportunities too.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's important. And, you know, to Nate's point, there's, you know, for someone who maybe hasn't participated in the census before, or ever seen the form, it can feel a little bit daunting. And I think there's also the questions about, why does the federal government want to know this information about me, and what are they going to do with this information? How does that work? And there are a lot of statutes in place that do cause the census information to be, you know, secure and not information that's shared across, you know, the broader scope of the government. But you know, I think for a lot of folks, it's getting that understanding and knowing that might help. So those are part of the education efforts. And I think, you know, for the Human Rights Commission, that's one of the things we talk about a lot, is their role being to educate the community on topics that are relevant to human rights. And so I think this could fit real well with what we're hoping that they're doing. So
I just took it, Nate, as another example of the work that our commissions do. It's so important. I mean, we hear, you know, whoever's on the city council hears from city staff professionals, you hear from the commissions, you hear open forums. You make better decisions the more information you get. So that's all I had. Just kudos.
Okay. Councilmember Hatfield?
I just want to plug that absentee voting is now open, right?
As of today.
Yeah, as of today.
last Friday.
Or last Friday. Whenever, it's now open.
It's open. That's the important thing. Yes.
For wards 2 and 4,
So let's clarify that a little deeper now.
yeah.
Normally they had to go to the courthouse. On this particular one, you have to come here.
Yep.
And they have to come, so they'd have to come to the second level of City Hall. And then you get it right at the front desk then, the ballot?
Yep.
And go through the process?
So I think the city's website still
Yeah.
says it starts on the 7th for in-person balloting.
So there's
There's a difference between in-person and absentee
So
balloting.
what is the distinction then?
So absentee balloting is the phase that we're currently in. And that's where someone can come in, request an absentee ballot, or they can fill out a form and mail it to us. If someone comes in person, fills out the form, we can give that individual the ballot directly. They can fill out the ballot. Then they fold it up, put it in an envelope, and it's put into an absentee ballot box. And it's not put into the voting machine quite yet. In-person voting is the thing that happens and begins the week before, so May 7th. In which case you can come, request the ballot, receive the ballot, fill it out, and put it directly into the counting machine.
So it's as if you're voting on that day, but you're doing it early.
Yes.
Okay, so the only difference is you're not putting it back in an envelope to have someone else put it into the machine later.
That's right.
The May 7th is you put it right in the voting.
Yourself.
It's already tallied.
Okay.
Where the other ones, the absentee are counted on that day?
The absentee ballots, we can begin putting those into the counting machines on May 7th. So,
okay.
yep. So, but in the meantime, they'll just sit in a locked box until it's time for them to be inserted into the counting machine. So.
And all that information is on the city's website, so if you're wondering, all those dates and other good information about the special election is on the city website, so I found that all very helpful. That's all I had.
Right. Nate, anything?
I don't think I have anything to add. Yeah, thanks.
Luke,
for the update on
anything?
the special election. Other than that.
Not forgetting you
You
this week.
forgot me last night, didn't you?
I know. That's because we bounced out of order. Matt, anything?
I just think it's really nice to be talking with adults right now.
Now
I
you
spent
should
the last 3
clarify
days
that.
with kids in the car. This is pretty nice.
Are we there yet? I can go.
I appreciate that compliment.
Even he feels good talking to us. That is okay.
We're acting like adults.
Yeah, exactly. All right, the only thing I have, a couple things. This Friday, we have a meeting here with 212, but we're gonna have the Transportation Commissioner here and the Chair of the Met Council will, be meeting with the 212 Coalition, group, and that is open to anyone, so that's here Friday morning at 7:30. Usually goes till 9:30. So that's open, that's, I don't know that we've ever had both of them here at one time.
No, it's nice.
But I talked to Nate about seeing if we should maybe go to the event center, just because I would suspect we'll have more people, just because of who's here, but, we've already checked and that's full, so we'll have to.
Plus, we found when we try to switch the location, that's almost worse.
Yeah, I know.
People get lost, yeah.
I know how that goes, but I didn't realize that they were both coming until I saw it in the email, and I just said, whoa. So, kind of a big deal, so hopefully, they're here and they'll hear a little bit about 212, and hopefully we can get that final funding to, well, actually, they feel pretty confident the final funding from Carver or Chaska to Cologne will get it, but they're actually been pushing real hard for the Cologne to Norwood piece as well, because they need 38 million, so they're trying to put it all together and try to get it all done in one shot, so hopefully, this is the year of 212, so we'll see what happens.
And I think next year is the traditional bonding year.
Right, this isn't a true bonding.
But I think they're probably gonna have a bonding bill this year too,
Yeah.
so.
So, maybe we get one but I don't know, we'll see what happens. Everyone sure seems positive when you talk to them about it, but depends what they tie it to. So, all right, the only other thing, that I can think of, GA has another fish fry, if you like fish, they got great fish, they got 3 different kinds. That's this Friday from 4:30 to 7:30, I believe, is the times on it. There's signs all over, so if I got it wrong, just double check the signs, but always good if you're interested. And our next meeting is the 15th, and right now we don't have one for the 29th, because there's 3 Mondays.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have one. We'll know before the 15th
Right.
meeting if we need one.
So just keep that day kind of open, the 29th. But otherwise, our next one here is the 15th. And I have nothing else. Anyone else? Not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Ryan,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hatfield to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. We are adjourned. Have a good night. Thanks for being here.